Alrighty, welcome in. I'm going to keep it short and I'm going to keep it sweet. I'm going to keep it simple, but I'm going to be efficient and share with you for absolutely free 15 years worth of trial and error till I figured it out for myself. All right, let's figure this out together. Think of your DAW's native plugins as the high-performance engine that comes pre-installed in a luxury car, right? We couldn't do this stuff in 1970, 1980, etc., etc., before digital audio workstations were a thing. And what is a DAW? What is a digital audio workstation? Ableton Live, Cubase, Reaper, Waves, fucking, you name it, right? Pro Tools, Reason, Fruity Loops, and the list goes on. So many producers get shiny object syndrome, spending thousands on third-party plugins before they even know what their stock EQ can even do. Here is why your native plugins are the most important tools and how to put those high-dollar boutique plugins in their place. Pun intended. Why native plugins come first. Unrivaled stability. All right? So native plugins are written by the same developers who built your DAW. So there's one reason. They're less likely to crash or session because they're perfectly integrated into the software's architecture. So think about that for a minute. So in Ableton Live, for example, with the myriad of native effects that you can just stack and stack and stack and run in parallel, run in sequence, run however you want, right? Just however to your heart's content until your CPU can't handle it. Most of the time, I've yet to see a native Ableton Live effects crash my system. But rather, I've seen stuff like too many effects or too many processes crash my system. Now with plugins, on the other hand, certain plugins, they'll do that right away. It just happened the other day, as a matter of fact. I'm trying out this really cool plugin. It's free. It's called Mega Mod, right? It allows you to map to certain VSTs that it recognizes as mappable. You can map LFOs, XY pad, and macro knobs, and the like, right? CPU efficiency, since we're on the subject. Third-party plugins often require heavy wrappers, quote-unquote wrappers, or complex code to work across different systems. Native plugins are learn and mean. Lean and mean, I wrote this out, so forgive me for not being able to spell my own words, to pronounce my own words and read my own words. Native plugins are lean and mean, allowing you to run 50-plus instances, this is what I just got done saying, of a stock EQ, where high-dollar emulations might choke your computer after 10. And I dare to say sometimes after just like 5 or 6, depending on what you're using. I remember when I first got Vital a long time ago when it was free, I was so impressed by that synth because I could run multiple channels, just everything, just Vital Audio, and no problems. So there are exceptions. And no, I don't work for, what's his name? I forget his name, that guy that made the Vital Audio. If you can pay for it, it's worth it. Okay, no compatibility nightmares. When your operating system updates, third-party developers can take months to release a new patch. Native plugins are updated alongside with your DAW, right? Ensuring your old sessions always open flawlessly. Now, it depends what kind of DAW you're in, if they're actually staying on top of things like they should be. Mastery over gear, right? So this is a topic I'd like to shift into, because having stuff is not the same as knowing stuff, all right? So using stock plugins forces you to learn the science of audio, frequency threshold, attack, etc., rather than relying on, quote, magic, end quote, presets, or a pretty interface, right? So some of these interfaces that come to mind to me are the LA2A emulations. First of all, I don't need that analog fucking hiss shit in there, first of all. Because if I want to add it, I got plugins to actually add noise, right? Noise generators and stuff like that. And second of all, it doesn't have to look like something from the 1970s because it's 2026. So it doesn't actually have to look like, I mean, I get it that it's a sales pitch, but it doesn't have to, it could look like anything. As long as it functions, that's what matters. And I'm going to tell you right now, in Ableton Live, their stock compressor, it's an opto, it's an expander, it's a fucking RMS, it's a brick wall limiter, it's a peak compressor. I mean, it's all kinds of shit, right? Just right there, just in a stock compressor. And no, I don't work for Ableton Live or anything like that, but I am super biased when it comes to certain digital audio workstations. For example, I tried working with a friend of mine in Fruity Loops, and so it was crazy because it was obvious that he had some skills on the microphone, right? He was a rapper, and this was not too long ago. It was probably about a year ago, and what ended up happening was I said, so let's route your audio to a bus. How do you do that? And I was like, well, you just route your audio to a bus. And so it took us fucking 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And I literally just said, all right, go watch some videos and then come back to me. Right. So I am a little bit biased when it comes to Ableton Live. The unlimited grouping, right? The audio effect racks, which is essentially a routing, right, to a bus and stuff like that. Anyways, the proper perspective on high dollar plugins. High dollar plugins are specialty tools, not a replacement for fundamental skills. Right? We just covered that. Think of them like a specific spice in a kitchen. You don't use truffle oil for every dish. I didn't even know there was truffle oil, by the way, until I started researching this shit. You use salt, pepper, butter, aka your stock plugins, for 90% of the work. So the paid plugins have their place, but the deal is this: when you need them, use them. Unique character and color, right? That might be a time where you would use a paid plugin. Or for example, like this free one, this Mega Mod free one, I mean, I'm surprised it's actually free. What it does is it shaves off a shit ton of somebody's workflow when sound designing or creating pretty sick atmospheres and bass patches and stuff like that. It's similar to this one thing called, I think it's called Manipulator. It's not Panipulator, it's something else, right? And I could never get the damn thing to work. It was supposed to be like it controls a bunch of your plugins, and you could XY morph between settings, right? So you could, but anyways, you could do the same thing with this free plugin. So what I'm trying to say is, you're going to do 90% of your work. I'm even willing to say you're going to probably do 95 to 99 to 100% of your work with stock plugins. A good example of that would be Saturator, right? People would think, oh, fuck, I need Saturn, dude. I need Saturn. And, well, you don't know how to use your stock Saturator. You don't know what its capabilities are. You don't know how to tweak it to get those settings that you want. You don't know how to build a low, mid, high frequency fucking separator in your DAW with your stock plugins where you can actually attack each frequency with whatever kind of saturation, stuff like that. So once you actually learn what your workstation can do, you'd be surprised. So in live, right? So in Ableton Live, I see things like Phase Plant, right? Phase Plant to me, with their little snap heap and all that shit, and their little lanes that you can, and then their extra little fucking things. I was doing that shit, I don't know, 10 years ago, just in live, just chaining multiple freaking synths just right there in my stock plugin, and then grouping them and stuff like that. And so it's kind of funny. Phase Plant's cool. It's really cool. I'm still learning it, actually, by the way. I mean, that's how cool it is. It's just like never ending. It's endless, it seems like. But when I did acquire it not too long ago, I realized, this is literally just like, it's almost like a copy paste of Ableton Live's workflow, except for in a plugin. All right. So basically, back to remember this: when to use the paid plugins if you want some color. For example, I have. Let's see if I could pull up on the screen. Let's see here. Well, anyway, so there's this SSL EQ channel strip emulator called SSQ, right? And it has a cool sound, and part of it is supposedly the analog fucking hum and hiss and circuitry and all that bullshit that I don't actually even like, because if you push it too hard, then it sounds like total garbage. All right, you got to be at like -18 dBFS and all this weird shit. That doesn't really matter if you just pay attention with your eyes at the meters and you don't go into the red and you stay, within the yellowish, greenish. You're fine. Long story short, but what I do like about it is the bell curves, right? The shape of the EQs, right? And that's what's cool about it. That's what gives it a unique sound, in my opinion. And what's neat, right, is you can actually, once again, you can emulate that in your DAW if you have like another free plugin called Bertum EQ Analyzer plugin. You put it before, you put it after, it generates a tone. The after reads the tone that goes through your EQ. You could literally have two instances, one on one track, one on another track, and you could take a look and you could say, oh, I like this type of bell curve. Let me see how I can emulate that in my stock plugin. And you can get pretty damn close. I literally have I made a, what is it? I made, until I realized the concept behind the Pultec low end boost cut deal. Until I realized the concept behind that, I would put a Pultec on there, boost cut, take a look at the EQ curve, and then emulate that in my parametric EQ. And I literally have just saved the settings called, like, I think it's called like Pultec settings or something like that. But I mean, for me, it's even more useful because I could sweep the frequencies, right? So with the Pultec, you got like tick 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 tick, whatever it goes up to. I forget what it goes up to, like 300 maybe or something like that. I don't know. I don't even care. I mean, if it sounds good, it's cool. It works, right? So back to that. Use the high dollar plugins for unique character and color. When you want a specific quote unquote vibe. I fucking can't stand that word. Microphone check. And guess what? I just realized something here. Mic check. Is this not picking up my mic? Oh, it is picking up my mic. Okay, well, hopefully the audio is loud. Yeah, I knew I got all set up before I was ready to go. But I looked over at my Scarlett and I was like, or not my Scarlett, at my Focusrite rack, and I was like, wait a minute. There is no green over on my rack, but there is green here in the video, so we're fine. We're good to go. And I just snapped my fingers. There we go. Mic check. I'm good to go. So back to the boring shit that hopefully isn't boring to you mix nerds that are like me, that like to learn useful stuff. Specific workflow needs. Going on to specific workflow needs. Some premium plugins like FabFilter Pro Q3, they offer visual feedback or surgical features that simply make your work faster. But do they really? Like, are they actually an advantage to your digital audio workstation's parametric EQ that has a built-in spectrum analyzer or whatever, for example? When you learn why it is that these things do what they do, if it's not an algorithm tweak that's far superior, like in the case of FabFilter and like TDR stuff and stuff like that, and Voxango stuff, it is that. Like, there are superior plugins. But for the most part, you can emulate the same workflow that to the ear, nobody's going to hear the difference, not even you, unless you've been working with these other high quality plugins for a long time, and then you'll see what their advantages are. And once again, we're back to unique need, right? Specific workflow need. Let's move on. Specialized processing. If you need a deep spectral editing, right? So like isotope, RX, or like some high-end pitch correction, Melodyne, stuff like that. These are tasks where stock tools often, but not always, often lack the specialized algorithms to complete these tasks or even to compete with these type of plugins. I forgot to mention Isotope, even though it's got a bad rap. I think with Isotope, they're so good that when they put out a new version, the thing that they improve upon from the previous version seems like hardly anything for extra money. But that's because Isotope is top notch shit. Right there with TDR, right there with Voxengo, right there with what is it called? Black something audio. Um, Man, Fab Filter ish, I guess, maybe. Okay. All right. So where was I? All right. So let me get over here real quick. Back to where I was. When not to use them, right? When not to use the high dollar plugins is probably just as important as when to use the high dollar plugins. So basic mixing tasks. Don't reach for a $300 compressor to do a simple 3 dB gain reduction on a vocal. Your stock compressor will actually do that, and it'll do that cleanly and more efficiently. So if you're trying to lower a section of a vocal or a weird noise that you've isolated the frequency and you have the ability to select that frequency and duck that frequency, and that's all you want to do, just grab your stock stuff. Super simple. Learn phase, what it is. It's not magic, it's simple. It just means if one trough is here at point 1, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. So if we're on a scale from 0 to 3, right? And at 1, we have a trough on the right speaker. At 1, we have a peak on the left speaker. It will sum to just silence, right? But then if they're slightly nudged, you get this weird like, right? Phaser, right? That's why you have a freaking tool called a phaser. You get this weird phasey shit that isn't always pleasant unless you are trying to do it on purpose. So don't reach for plugins to fix that either. So if you don't understand why your mix sounds quote muddy, right? End quote. Buying a new plugin is not going to fix it. It'll just give you a higher definition version of a bad mix, which I thought was pretty cleverly worded. You will get a high def version of a bad mix. Moving on to template bloat, right? Avoid putting heavy third-party plugins on every track by default. It kills your creativity by introducing latency and slowing down your workflow. Like for me, it doesn't really introduce too much latency. And the ones that I have are ones that I use on a regular basis, so it actually improves my workflow. And just so you know, like I got there by probably the way that you guys get to where you're at when you set up a default template, right? So in default template, what that means is when you open up your digital audio workstation, your DAW, by default, certain things open up, whether it's 5 MIDI tracks, 5 audio tracks, and they've all got certain kind of plugins plugged into them, or whatever, or 3 groups, and one group is for sidechain, one group is a reverb, or 8 sends, or whatever you have, right? It's whatever it opens up by default, your default settings. I got to mine by noticing, I always use these things when I'm designing, when I'm composing songs, right? Not sound designing. Sound designing that's the fun stuff for me. It's like exploratory, like I get to go in the realm of creativity. But So don't just think, oh, I can watch some video and I'll know what kind of template to open by default because I watched a video on YouTube from some dude that looks like he's smart and has a fucking cool background picture of go to my Patreon fucking shit or whatever, like me, right? But I don't look smart, so we'll take that look smart part out of it. Anyhow, I hope you like my joke. Yeah, just don't create a template that when you look at it you go, holy fuck. Like I have these markers, these flags up in my template to give me a general idea. But what I've noticed is if I pay attention, like I get to a point in making my track that those are a rough guideline. And if I keep them there, they'll actually interfere with me psychologically. I'll say, wait a minute, this drop is supposed to be right here, this bridge, this chorus, this verse, this breakdown, this second drop, whatever, this build, this decrescendo, this crescendo, whatever, right? It's supposed to be here, 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 and here because I got these flags and these markers. Sometimes our default set can get in the way. So that's what that's about. Template bloat. Rule of thumb as an outro. Rule of thumb. Master the stock tools until you can explain exactly why they can't do what you want them to do or what you need them to do. Only then should you go out and buy a solution. You will be surprised that the more you learn about what a stock effects can do. I say effects instead of plugins, but you'd be surprised. Mic check, mic check. You'd be surprised at what a stock effect can actually do when you realize its full potential, and then you realize another stock effect's full potential and how to tweak these things, stack them together, create your own personal little rack. You'd be surprised that you can come real close to doing what some specialty paid plugins can do. So most professional mixes you hear today, they're 70 to 80% stock plugins, according to research. Right? I don't fucking know. I don't. I don't go to 70 to 80% of mix engineers' studios and say, "Oh, well, those are stock plugins." But I looked this kind of stuff up, right? And so the answer that I got was that 70 to 80% of stock plugins are what's being done with professional mixes that you hear. With the quote, expensive stuff, save for a few key moments of ear candy or character. Now, I should take my own advice on that one because I want everything that I make to sound like ear candy and have a freaking crazy character every single track. So I should probably take my own advice with that. But you'll notice, like my one viewer who comes in here from time to time, you'll notice that most of the mixes that I do when I'm sound designing or mixing something live, most of the stuff is stock plugins because I kind of sort of want to encourage the viewer to like say, hey, look, you can do this with stock. It's not because I'm dumb and don't know that there's specialty tools and paid stuff. That's badass. And you'll see me use free stuff. It's not because I don't know that there's paid stuff, but some of the free stuff's actually pretty badass. Well, that's it. This will be private. So if you are fortunate enough to see this video before I take it down tomorrow at 10:13 p.m., then you got some really cool free advice. This will be going over to my Patreon channel. And yeah, hopefully this will be part of a series. Well, definitely it will be, but I don't know how long it will take for me to build this up into a series. So I'm just going to go put it over there tomorrow night after my other job, my actual job that pays me. Ooh, imagine that. I have two jobs. I get paid to do this and paid to do that. Although I am available for certain sub work if you have any work you need subbed out to a mix engineer, mastering engineer, or just a sound designer. I say the mastering part with kind of cringing because I don't like to do that. I don't like to do the mastering stuff, although I can. I'd rather have somebody else. Here's my advice: give your mastering stuff to somebody who's been a dedicated mastering engineer that worked underneath somebody for fucking 20 years, 30 years, or whatever. Or give it to some super old fucking, hey man, who's been doing it for 40, 50 years. All right, that's what I say about that. But whatever, I can still do it. Anyhow, that's it. Keep it fun, and until next time.